The galaxy was in grave danger. Across many star systems, a ruthless alien race known as the Zelthar was spreading fear. Their ships were fast and powerful, attacking planets one by one. The Zelthar took what they wanted, destroying cities and leaving nothing but ruins. Many worlds fell to their might, and the cries of helpless people echoed in the darkness of space. On the edge of the galaxy, a small human colony called New Hope received terrible news. The Zelthar were coming for them next. The colony was peaceful, filled with families, farmers, and traders. They had built their lives in this remote corner of the universe, but now that dream was threatened. The colony's leaders quickly called for a meeting in the town hall, a sturdy building at the heart of New Hope. Inside the hall, worried faces filled the room. The leaders spoke in hushed tones, glancing at each other with concern. "We need help," said Commander Sarah. She was a strong woman with fiery red hair and a determined look in her eyes. "We cannot fight the Zelthar alone. We must reach out to Earth." The others nodded in agreement, knowing it was their only chance. The colony's chief engineer, Marcus, suggested they contact the human military. "They have resources and technology we don't have," he said. "They might send a warship to protect us." As they discussed their plan, fear gripped the hearts of everyone in the room. What if no one came? What if they were left to face the Zelthar alone? The thought sent shivers down their spines. Meanwhile, on Earth, a group of scientists and military leaders was hard at work. They had been preparing for a possible invasion for years, but the threat of the Zelthar was greater than anyone had anticipated. In a secret facility hidden deep beneath the ground, engineers and soldiers raced against time to finish building a powerful warship called the USS Vanguard. This warship was unlike any other. It was equipped with the latest technology, making it faster and more powerful than any ship in the galaxy. The USS Vanguard was designed to carry a crew of elite soldiers, trained to fight and defend humanity. It had advanced weapons capable of taking down even the most formidable foes. As the clock ticked down, Commander Lucas, a brave and experienced leader, stood before his team. "We must launch the USS Vanguard immediately," he declared. "The colony at New Hope is in danger. If we don't act now, they may not survive the Zelthar attack." The crew members exchanged determined looks, knowing they were about to embark on a critical mission. They gathered their gear and prepared for launch, adrenaline pumping through their veins. Back at the colony, the leaders were hopeful. They sent a message to Earth explaining their situation and pleading for help. "We cannot hold out much longer," they wrote. "Please send aid before it's too late." Days passed, and the people of New Hope watched the skies, waiting for the sight of human ships. The atmosphere was heavy with fear, but they tried to stay strong. Children played in the streets, while the elders shared stories of bravery. They needed hope, and they needed it fast. Finally, the moment arrived. A bright flash appeared in the sky, and a massive shape began to descend. The USS Vanguard had arrived. Its sleek design and powerful engines cut through the air as it landed. Cheers erupted from the people of New Hope as they gathered to see their saviors. But the battle was far from over. The Zelthar were still out there, lurking in the darkness of space, preparing for their next strike. The crew of the USS Vanguard knew they had to act quickly. As they stepped onto the colony's ground, they felt the weight of the galaxy on their shoulders. The fight for survival had just begun. The crew of the USS Vanguard stood ready, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. They had just arrived at New Hope, a small but brave human colony under threat from the merciless Zelthar. Commander Lucas gathered his crew in the main hangar of the warship. The massive ship was gleaming under the bright lights, and its engines hummed with power. "Listen up, everyone," Commander Lucas said, his voice steady and strong. "We have a mission to protect this colony. The Zelthar will come for them soon, and we need to be ready. Our ship is the best in the galaxy, and together we can turn the tide of this battle." The crew members nodded, their faces showing determination. They knew the stakes. Each of them had trained for this moment, and they were prepared to fight for their fellow humans. The engineers had worked tirelessly to equip the USS Vanguard with the latest technology. The ship was a symbol of hope, and the crew felt proud to serve aboard it. As the warship lifted off from the surface of New Hope, the crew watched the colony grow smaller beneath them. They could see the fields, homes, and people they were about to defend. It was a beautiful sight, but the crew knew the peace wouldn't last long. They were headed into danger, and the reality of the fight ahead weighed heavily on them. The USS Vanguard soared through space, its engines roaring. The ship was fast, cutting through the stars like a comet. The crew had access to advanced navigation systems, allowing them to plot their course directly toward the Zelthar fleet. On board, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The crew busied themselves with their tasks, checking systems and preparing weapons. Sergeant Maya, a skilled pilot, was at the controls. She had trained for years to fly the warship, and now it was her chance to prove herself. "Engines at full power," she announced, her fingers dancing over the controls. "We'll reach the Zelthar in no time." As they flew deeper into space, the crew shared stories and jokes to keep their spirits high. Private Daniel, the youngest crew member, was nervous but excited. "What if we run into the Zelthar? Are we really ready?" he asked, his eyes wide with concern. "We are ready," replied Lieutenant Sarah, the ship's weapons officer. "We've trained hard for this. Trust in the ship and in each other. Together we are stronger than any enemy." The crew found comfort in her words, and slowly their fears began to fade. They worked as a team, checking systems and running simulations. The ship was equipped with powerful laser cannons and missile launchers. Each crew member had a role to play, and everyone understood the importance of their mission. As they drew closer to the Zelthar fleet, they could see the shadows of enemy ships in the distance. The Zelthar were large and menacing, their dark hulls contrasting sharply against the stars. The sight filled the crew with a sense of purpose. They were about to face a formidable enemy, but they were not afraid. "Prepare for battle," Commander Lucas ordered, his voice calm yet firm. The crew jumped into action, each person moving to their designated station. The tension in the air thickened, and adrenaline pumped through their veins. They were ready to fight. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up movement. "They're coming!" yelled Ensign Mark from the sensor station. The crew could see the Zelthar ships turning toward them, their weapons charging for attack. "Stealth mode engaged," Maya announced, activating the ship's cloaking technology. The USS Vanguard became invisible to the enemy, slipping into the shadows of space. They were ready to strike before the Zelthar even knew they were there. "Let's show them what humans can do," Commander Lucas said, a fierce determination in his eyes. The crew cheered, united in their mission. As they prepared for the upcoming battle, they felt a wave of confidence wash over them. They were no longer just a crew, they were a team, ready to defend their home and the galaxy. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but they had each other, and that was enough. The USS Vanguard floated silently in the shadows of space, hidden from the Zelthar fleet. The crew sat at their stations, tension filling the air. Commander Lucas looked around the bridge, his heart racing. He knew this moment would decide the fate of New Hope and everyone on it. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady. "Enemy ships are in range," Ensign Mark replied, his eyes glued to the sensor screen. "They're moving in formation, but they don't see us yet." "Good. Let's keep it that way," Lucas said. He turned to Sergeant Maya. "Prepare to engage the stealth mode systems. We'll need every advantage." The crew was on high alert, focused on their tasks. The Zelthar fleet was vast, with dozens of ships ready to unleash destruction. The crew of the USS Vanguard knew they were outnumbered, but they had the element of surprise. They had trained for this moment, and they were determined to make their move. "Ready, weapons?" Lieutenant Sarah shouted, her hands dancing over the controls of the ship's powerful laser cannons. "We'll fire on my mark." The crew took deep breaths, steeling themselves for the fight ahead. They could see the enemy ships growing closer on the screen, their dark shapes looming like monsters in the night. "Here they come," Maya warned, her voice tense. "They're getting ready to fire!" "Mark!" Sarah shouted, and in that instant the USS Vanguard roared to life. The ship broke free from the shadows, its engines flaring brightly as it emerged into full view. The crew was filled with a mix of fear and excitement. Laser blasts erupted from the Zelthar ships, bright beams of light shooting through space. The USS Vanguard swerved to the side, dodging the incoming fire. The crew felt the ship shake as they narrowly avoided a powerful blast. "Return fire!" Commander Lucas ordered. The crew sprang into action, their training kicking in. Sarah pressed the buttons on her console, and the ship's cannons fired back. Bright beams of energy shot out toward the enemy ships, hitting one of them squarely on the side. The Zelthar ship erupted in a fiery explosion, and the crew cheered. "We got one!" Private Daniel shouted, his face lighting up with excitement. But there was no time to celebrate. The Zelthar were angry now, their ships regrouping for a counterattack. "More ships incoming!" Ensign Mark warned, his fingers flying over the controls. "They're swarming us! Hold steady, everyone!" Lucas called out. "Keep firing! We can't let them overwhelm us!" The battle raged on as the USS Vanguard darted through space, weaving in and out of enemy fire. The crew worked together flawlessly, each person knowing their role. Maya piloted the ship with skill, avoiding the Zelthar blasts, while Sarah continued to unleash a barrage of laser fire. "Critical damage to the right engine," shouted an engineer from the back. The warning sent a chill through the crew. "We're losing power! Reroute energy from the shields," Lucas commanded, trying to keep calm. "We can't let them take us down." The crew scrambled to follow his orders, determination in their eyes. They fought hard, knowing the lives of the people on New Hope depended on them. Another enemy ship exploded in a blaze of light, but the Zelthar kept coming. "More enemy ships are joining the battle!" Mark yelled. "They're flanking us!" "We need to regroup and find a safer position," Lucas said, glancing at the battle map. "Get us behind that asteroid field. We can use it for cover." Maya quickly turned the ship, guiding the USS Vanguard toward the rocky formations. The crew felt the ship shake again as enemy blasts flew past them. They were getting closer to the asteroids, but they needed to act fast. As they slipped into the cover of the asteroids, they took a moment to catch their breath. The sounds of battle faded slightly, but the crew knew it was far from over. "Status report!" Lucas asked, trying to assess the situation. "We've taken damage, but we're still operational," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We need to think strategically." "Agreed," Lucas said. "We've shown them we can fight back. Now let's regroup and plan our next move. We'll show the Zelthar that humanity won't back down." The crew exchanged determined glances, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for every human who had ever faced danger. The USS Vanguard was their home, and they would protect it at all costs. As they prepared for the next phase of the battle, they knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning, and they would not give up without a fight. In the dim light of the USS Vanguard, the crew gathered around the central holographic table. The atmosphere was tense but determined. Commander Lucas studied the glowing map of the battle. The Zelthar fleet was still out there, waiting for them, and their numbers were overwhelming. "We can't keep dodging and weaving forever," Lucas said, his voice calm but firm. "We need a plan to turn the tide in our favor. We need to hit them hard, but we have to be smart about it." Lieutenant Sarah tapped a few buttons on the table, bringing up a detailed view of the enemy fleet. "They're vulnerable on the left flank," she pointed out. "If we can draw their attention to the right, we could sneak around and attack them from behind." "That could work," Maya replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But it's risky. If they spot us too soon, we'll be in serious trouble." "True," Lucas acknowledged. "But if we do nothing, we're just waiting to be picked off one by one. We must act now before they regroup and strengthen their defenses. Does anyone have a better idea?" The crew exchanged glances, each one weighing the dangers. Finally, Private Daniel spoke up, his voice shaky but filled with resolve. "What if we create a diversion? We could use the ship's drones to draw their fire, making them think we're attacking from one side while we hit them from the other." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good idea, Daniel. We can send in the drones to create chaos. It might give us the opening we need." "All right, let's do it," Lucas commanded. "Maya, prepare the drones. Sarah, coordinate with engineering to ensure they're ready to launch. We'll need every second to make this work." The crew jumped into action. Maya's fingers flew over the controls, preparing the drones for deployment. Each drone was a small but powerful machine designed to create distractions and confuse the enemy. Sarah worked closely with the engineers to ensure the drones were armed and ready. As the crew moved quickly, the tension in the room began to ease. They were focused, united by the urgency of their mission. Each member understood the risks, but they also knew the importance of their plan. "Drones ready for launch," Maya announced, her voice steady. The crew gathered around, their hearts racing with anticipation. "On my mark," Lucas said, looking at each member of his crew. 3, 2, 1, launch! With a whoosh, the drone shot out from the USS Vanguard, scattering into the vastness of space. They zipped toward the Zelthar fleet, their tiny engines glowing brightly. The drones began to fire small bursts of energy at the enemy ships, creating bright flashes of light. The Zelthar ships responded immediately, redirecting their weapons toward the drones. Lucas watched closely as the enemy began to focus on the distractions, just as they had hoped. "Now's our chance," he yelled. "Let's move in!" Maya piloted the USS Vanguard forward, steering the ship toward the left flank of the Zelthar fleet. The crew felt a mix of excitement and fear as they approached the enemy. The sounds of laser blasts and explosions filled the air, but they were determined to push through. As they entered the fray, Sarah focused on the targeting systems. "I've got a lock on one of their bigger ships," she shouted. "Ready to fire!" "Do it!" Lucas commanded, his heart pounding. With a press of a button, Sarah unleashed a powerful shot from the USS Vanguard. The laser beam shot through the darkness, hitting the Zelthar ship with a direct hit. The explosion rocked the space around them, sending debris flying. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by their success. But they knew the battle was far from over. The Zelthar were regrouping, their remaining ships now aware of the human warship's presence. "More enemy ships are turning toward us!" Mark warned, urgency in his voice. "They're not happy. Stay focused," Lucas shouted. "We have to keep pushing. Keep firing!" The USS Vanguard swerved and darted between enemy ships, its powerful engines roaring. The crew worked as one, their training shining through as they coordinated their attacks. As they fought, Lucas felt a surge of pride for his crew. They had come together taking risks to protect their home. Every blast they fired and every maneuver they made was a testament to their bravery. But as the battle continued, Lucas knew they had to be careful. They couldn't let their guard down. The Zelthar were fierce, and they wouldn't give up easily. "Let's keep the pressure on them," Lucas urged. "We can't stop now. This fight is for new hope, and we will not back down." With renewed determination, the crew pressed on, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for every human who believed in them. The USS Vanguard was their ship, and they would defend it with all their strength. The battle raged on, but the tide was turning in favor of the USS Vanguard. The crew had worked tirelessly, each person focused on their role. Commander Lucas felt a surge of pride as he watched his crew come together, fighting like a well-oiled machine. The Zelthar fleet was struggling to maintain their strength against the relentless attacks of the human warship. "Enemy ship on our starboard side!" Ensign Mark shouted, his voice echoing over the din of battle. "They're trying to flank us." "Get us out of here, Maya!" Lucas ordered. "We need to stay mobile." Maya's hands flew over the controls, and the USS Vanguard swerved sharply to the left. The ship narrowly avoided a barrage of enemy fire, the crew holding on as the ship rocked from side to side. "Return fire!" Sarah shouted, her fingers dancing over the weapon controls. "Locking on now! Firing!" The ship's cannons unleashed another wave of energy, striking the attacking Zelthar ship. The explosion lit up the dark space around them, and cheers erupted from the crew. Each victory fueled their hope, pushing them forward. "Keep it up, everyone!" Lucas encouraged, feeling the excitement swell in the air. "We're making a difference!" As the battle continued, the USS Vanguard took a moment to regroup. The crew quickly assessed their status. They had suffered some damage, but their spirits were high. "We're still in this," Maya confirmed, glancing at the readings on her console. "We just need to stay focused." Suddenly, a loud alarm rang out from the console. "Commander! We have multiple Zelthar ships moving toward our position," Mark warned. "They're forming a blockade." Lucas took a deep breath, knowing they had to act fast. "We can't let them surround us. Maya, prepare to make a hard turn toward that asteroid field." With quick reflexes, Maya maneuvered the USS Vanguard toward the asteroids. The ship weaved expertly through the rocky formations, avoiding enemy fire as they sought cover. "Get ready for another round of drones!" Lucas commanded. "We'll use them to draw attention away from us." "Drones deployed," Sarah called out, sending a swarm of small machines out into space. The drones scattered, creating a visual distraction as they zipped around the enemy ships, firing shots to confuse them. The Zelthar ships turned their focus toward the drones, giving the USS Vanguard a precious moment to regroup. "Now's our chance!" Lucas yelled, excitement bubbling in his chest. "Let's go back on the offensive!" With the crew re-energized, the USS Vanguard launched back into the fray. They targeted the nearest Zelthar ship, combining their firepower for a decisive strike. The enemy vessel exploded, sending debris flying. One by one, the Zelthar ships began to fall. With each blast that struck true, the crew's confidence grew. They could see it now. Victory was within reach. "Look," Mark shouted, pointing to the display. "The Zelthar are retreating. They're breaking formation." The crew erupted into cheers, their voices echoing through the bridge. Lucas felt a mix of relief and pride wash over him. They had faced incredible odds, but they were winning. "Let's not get complacent," Lucas reminded them. "We need to make sure they don't come back. Keep firing until they're out of sight." As the last Zelthar ships turned and fled into the darkness of space, the USS Vanguard stood tall, victorious. The crew exchanged high fives and relieved laughter, knowing they had fought hard for their home. "Commander, we did it!" Sarah exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. "We actually did it!" Lucas smiled broadly, feeling the weight of the battle lift from his shoulders. "Yes, we did. But let's not forget what this fight was for. We fought for new hope, for every person who believed in us." As they settled down from the adrenaline rush of battle, the crew began to assess the damage to their ship. They had sustained some injuries, but nothing they couldn't handle. The engineers worked quickly and spirits remained high. "Let's send a transmission to New Hope," Lucas said, his mind already on the next steps. "They need to know what we've achieved here today." As the crew sent the message back home, hope surged in their hearts. They had faced a dark threat and emerged victorious. The bond they formed during this battle was unbreakable, and they were ready to protect their home at any cost. The USS Vanguard turned its sensors toward the distant stars, the crew filled with determination and hope. They had fought for their survival, and they would always be ready to defend humanity against any challenge that lay ahead. As the ship sailed through the stars, the crew knew one thing for certain: they were not alone. Together, they had faced the darkness, and they would always find a way to light the way forward.